go. Lines in the sand, welcome to the front row. Real life hitting, everybody wanna know. When the spin get thick, who cuts through the chain? AK, David Drew stepping into the frame. Late nights, boots in the dirt. From the grind to the house, to the stove, to the grease stain shirts. Parents, pay fight for what's true. From the clinic to the warehouse, to your living room. Headlines screaming, but we ain't scared. Faith in our bones, yeah, we came prepared. Culture war is unchained. Where the real ones meet the rage. Where the truth cuts through the noise. Every voice on the stage. Culture war is unchained. From the heartland to your brain. If you're tired of the script, we're here to break the chain.
Welcome back to Culture Warriors Unchained. I am David Webster, the Peruvian gentleman. It is March 30th, 2026, and the country is doing exactly what it does best, getting louder and making less and less sense. We got no kings rallies popping up nationwide because nothing says we reject authority like forming committees, printing signs, and asking for permits. Hollywood is now taking another swing at Lord of the Rings, which is bold because they've had a really solid track record lately of taking great things and making nobody enjoy them anymore. UFOs are back in the headlines again, and at this point, I don't know if it's aliens or just another way of keeping you distracted while everything gets more expensive, which I'm sure you've noticed. And of course, the internet's pushing another viral skit because when the culture runs out of ideas, it just gets louder, weirder, and somehow calls it progress. Same country, same chaos. This is Culture Warriors Unchained. Let's get into it. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I'm here with my awesome co-hosts, AK Kamara and Drew Outstanding. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. AK, kick it off to you.
My name is AK Kamara, and I am of this three-legged, we'll call it stool of a podcast. I'm the guy that's absolutely emphatic and fired up about getting people involved in the Republican Party apparatus. So I'm the Republican National Committee man from the state of Minnesota, and my goal is to be able to hopefully bring people that are interested in politics from like a let's get involved and be active, but are maybe put off by thinking it's something that's meant for the elite. And I think that I should be able to hopefully help dispel that. No, we actually need normal people, like people that just want to have a good time and enjoy life and raise their family and be able to live in peace. But they also can say, well, I want to be active and involved in politics. I also make content online. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and Facebook at Real AK Kamara. And I hope that over the course of the next 2 hours, you can understand that you can actually be involved in politics and not be, as Joe Rogan said, a nerd loser and he had disparaging things to say about the mega folks that are involved in, and hopefully you understand that that's not true for the majority of us.
Yeah, well, Joe said some of them. It came off as all, but I don't know. Joe is Joe. But yeah, anyway, I am Drew Outstanding. I am your local Minnesota disabled adaptive sports veteran, just trying to figure out things in this crazy world. I went into a coma for about a week and woke up, and the whole world was a little bit different, a lot bit different, actually. And now I'm trying to figure out and trying to talk to everybody else, see if they have it figured out, which most people don't. And that's why we need to talk to each other. So that's what I'm doing. I'm excited for going out to Colorado in about a week. I will be doing adaptive skiing along with about 300 other veterans and 200 trainers, staff, food people. It's kind of like a mini version of the Olympics. So it's going to be absolutely amazing. But from now until then, let's get talking on some awesome stories and see how it relates to the everyday person. Take it away, David.
So we're going to kick this off. I was debating what order we should go in, and I think I don't know if you guys, you in the chat and you guys watching at home have seen this mug before, but I have some strong opinions about a certain franchise, a certain amount of love for it, and over the week, we got an announcement from the man himself who brought the Lord of the Rings franchise to life on film for us. That he's going to be making an additional movie besides just The Hunt for Gollum, which I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't super excited about because Viggo Mortensen is now currently the age that Ian McKellen was when he first played Gandalf in the first Lord of the Rings movie.
Wow.
Like
Wow.
how much digital de-aging can you do to make him look like younger than Aragorn did in the Fellowship, right? And just the uncanny valley that that's going to create. So, here from Ground News, on Tuesday, late show host Stephen Colbert announced development of a new Lord of the Rings film titled Lord of the Rings: Shadows of the Past, marking his first venture into big budget filmmaking. Perfect timing since he's about to lose his job, on late night. He's been a longtime Tolkien fan. I will not deny that. He does. He references a lot of things. He knows a lot about the franchise. He's probably one of the few people on the left that's as obsessed as most of us are with the franchise. It's made so he wants to make a film about the six overlooked chapters from the Fellowship of the Ring that never made it into the 2001 film, and approaching director Peter Jackson with the concept over 2 years of development with his son. Nepotism in Hollywood, I love it. With his son Peter and Philip Avoyans. Um, the official logline reveals the story unfolds 14 years after Frodo's passing, following Sam, Merry, and Pippin as they retrace their early adventure, while Sam's daughter Eleanor uncovers a hidden mystery about the War of the Ring, about how the War of the Ring nearly failed before it began. And yeah, I'm not excited about this. I just, I still have PTSD from War of the Rohirrim, where they took a character who had one sentence about her in the appendices and made her the main character over the War of the Rohirrim's the story of Helm Hammerhand. I could get into it, but before I go nuts, I want to get you guys' takes. Like, how
Yeah.
do you feel about Stephen Colbert, the vaccine guy, right? When he made the whole play about it. He's gonna do Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it was the vaccine, SCENE. Yeah, they had this whole scene of it. That will never leave my memory. But yep, I watched this video. It was Peter Jackson having this discussion, totally completely set up, planned out, and it looked like it was a random little Zoom meeting, but it was not. With Stephen Colbert. And yeah, it was super cringe. And he's like, and then they even made the joke. He's like, well, yeah, I guess I'll have some time off next summer because he's getting whatever, let go, fired. It just, the views aren't there. It's been decaying. Him, the other Jimmys have been just decaying late night for quite some years now. Yeah, if you want to talk about vaccine, yeah, it's been 5 years now with that. And it was nepotism, like you thrown out there. It's his son who's a screenwriter, but you look over and he doesn't have like a good IMDb. There's not a lot out there. So it's like, why give Stephen Colbert and his, you know, son all this stuff? Yeah, we can all be fans of the stuff. Doesn't mean you'll be awesome at it. I'm a big fan of the MCU and Steve Rogers and Iron Man and stuff, but I'm not going to go and start writing comic books. I know we've seen previously Ibram X. Kendi did Captain America and Red Skull and turned it into more of the German persuasion. And that, yeah, it's getting a little too much, and it just keeps going farther and farther out there. You could even tell Peter Jackson was not into it. He was like, yeah, this yeah, sounds like a great idea. But even to dive even more into it, it talked about whatever it was, like 6 chapters. It's intermingled in the trilogy that they put out there. So how are you talk about the uncanny valley and bringing people in and out of this stuff? How are you going to like stop the new movie and it's like, okay, now play the Peter Jackson original trilogy and stuff like that? It just doesn't make sense to me. They're grabbing for nostalgia. They're trying to go off IPs that are already out there. And there's a bunch of rules in there too. They can't go forward in time. They can't go backwards in time. So they're really trying to dissect the things that are already out there.
Yeah, I mean, like here's the deal. When it comes to Lord of the Rings, I'm not, I guess, your traditional kind of like nerd or geek in regards to like the Middle Earth Elven type of stuff. Like that's
How
never
dare
really,
you, sir?
dude. It's never been my jam. It hasn't. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I like magic and all that type of stuff, but it's just kind of never been my jam. But I will say this: I think that there's like the universe that Lord of the Rings occupies. Just make new IP, man. I mean, I think they're trying so hard to like continue to kind of like introduce the Lord of the Rings. And I get it, like that's J.R.R. Tolkien, right? Like he was the one that created Lord of the Rings. And I get that he has an
Yes.
entire novel and all this different stuff. But like just have new IP and then people won't be so upset because like you said, Drew, like both Drew and David, you guys have enjoyed the Lord of the Rings. You understand a lot of and more of you specifically, David, but more of like the actual canon of it. And it's hard to keep you interested. And I think the Star Wars universe is kind of doing the same thing. I know it's a little bit different because it's not based off of the same, like books that have been around for a long time. But I think just create something that's new and interesting. And have you guys had a chance? I haven't seen it yet, but I'm hearing like all of these rave reviews about Hail Mary, right? Like again, it's a book that was created, but at the end of the day, like it's something that's new being introduced and people really, really like it. So I don't know. That's just kind of my position on it. Like they're going to continue to make people unhappy that are true to the lore when they start to change things around, just like, Black Snape. It's just, you're never going to win, man.
Yeah, we can get into that later.
Yeah, I was
too.
gonna say yes.
I know a
let's-
little bit.
Let's wrap all of that because that's
No,
that's
it
been
is.
on
There's
my
a lot.
list too. No, there's so
There's
much going
Star
on in pop
Wars.
culture right now because we can't have anything nice, right? Anything where you have strong male leads, anything where you have strong, anything even resembling conservative or faith-based values, right, has to be
Even just a
attacked.
hero's journey, even the idea that you're gonna struggle at the beginning when you start anything. It could be a it could be a battle, it could be anything. Even if you're, Thor, who is born into this, magical godlike kingdom, you're still gonna be arrogant. Doctors, don't have good bedside manner necessarily. If you're going into that certain position, you're not gonna have that kind of stuff. But like you said, they deny people of struggling, getting over stuff, and then coming out on top later on. But if you put in a minority group or whatever it is, for some reason they can't show them struggling because that would go against the whatever agenda, and it just makes
Yeah.
for boring content. And it's like
It's
you're,
like
you're not
Mulan
even
being
touching.
born with magic powers and being the chosen one to save her people versus she was really bad soldier. She went to basic training. She became average at best so that she was passable, but she was a better strategist. And they ultimately won because she could use her brain and, you know what I mean, in a way that
Yep,
the
you
others weren't
use the
able to think of things. Like,
qualities
that's a
that
better
you already
story.
have. Yeah,
Yeah.
you use qualities that you have or you didn't know that you had, and then you're in a new situation. Like especially David, anybody who goes into basic training, you just don't walk into there and just crush it on every event.
Oh, you're bad at
Physical,
everything.
yeah, physical, getting along with
Like,
60 guys living in
yeah,
a
the guys
bay
who are
and
jacked, they don't know how to make a bed, right? And the guys that are like can memorize all the TMs and FMs, right? They like get winded after running a mile. Like everybody sucks, and you all just suck together, and you all
it's
kind of get to the
humbling.
middle where you're passable as soldiers. Absolutely. But I want to jump back to what AK was talking about there with Star Wars, and I absolutely agree. And actually, it kind of ties into what Drew was talking about, with like how do you split this story in your movie watching, right? And I think, you know, not to give Disney more credit than it deserves, but Rogue One is a great example of how to do like they almost did too much with the CGI with like the Grand Moff Tarkin's character and the Princess Leia, the digital de aging of whoever the actual stand-in actors were, but the majority of the story is all characters that don't actually exist outside of their own story, right? Like they die at the end of that. Spoiler alert for Rogue One, and then it leads into A New Hope because otherwise you're breaking the canon. Like, why wouldn't all these characters who cared so deeply about the Rebel Alliance not show up in A New Hope for like the Battle of Yavin, right? Like that, that's the only way you could make that story. The problem with the lost chapters, if you want to call them that, from the Fellowship of the Ring, is you're going to have to digitally de-age Sam, Merry, Pippin, and Frodo to do all of their flashbacks or recast it all together, which is also not going to make sense or fit. Like I love the original films. I like the actors. I mean, some of them have some really weird takes these days, like a lot of celebrities do. But like Billy Boyd, it was actually the oldest actor among the hobbits, but he looked the youngest, and he was also playing the on-screen youngest of the four characters. He now looks like the oldest guy. Like he looks like he could be Elijah Wood's father. Like you cannot put him in the costume again and have us believe that he's the same guy who was running with the cabbages and the carrots in the first film. Like it's not going to work.
Well,
And
yeah, you're diving into like more of the AI stuff, and which has taken
yep,
over everything. And then when you combine with the nostalgia that our generation likes to see, kind of goes out there. But then it's the whole thing is just like it's surface level. We're not bringing it to our our kids or kids and next generation to make them. It's just regurgitating 90s kind of stuff, 90s 2000s, and it's just not working. And like I said, with AI, they're gonna they're gonna spend a ton of money, like hundreds of millions of dollars, and more than likely not get a return on investment. And then also it's just gonna be not high of a quality. So it's just like it's never gonna make everybody happy. And AK, like you were talking about with Star Wars, with all the stuff, you really just need to shelve it. There's a proven formula with Star Wars, just putting it on pause for whatever it was, 10, 15 years, and then going in the prequels, and then you get into Disney buying it later.
Sort of. Well,
But
we
but it was just the whole thing that like you can't just keep pushing the stuff out there just because you can.
Right.
yeah, absolutely. I want to throw this clip on real quick. It's Peter Jackson when they first were going to make the Fellowship of the Ring, the first film, and he talks about, you know, obviously we're in the modern era, modern sensibilities. Even back when I was in high school, we were starting to see woke creep into the world. But he, like the energy, you can even hear the look. You look at him, you listen to him talk, the passion in his voice, right? Like this is a franchise he cares about. He wants to do it justice. He wants to honor what um, what Tolkien put together, and it is important. And AK, I'll explain it to you a little bit why Lord of the Rings is so important because I can see just that you're glossing over. It's not aliens, it's not laser technology, and so I know you're just not interested. But go ahead and play this for us, AM, real quick.
we didn't want to put any of our own, certainly in terms of the thematic material, we didn't want to put any of our own baggage. I mean, we had no interest in putting our messages into this movie, but we thought that we should honor Tolkien by putting his messages into it, and we thought he cared about things. The countryside and the rise of evil, and
Let's
he
pause it there
cared
for copyright.
about certain.
But yeah, so that's somebody who respects the original. And his thing, like Tolkien's whole thing was he wanted to create kind of like a Greek mythology, if you will, for England, right? For the UK, for that side of the world. And he'd lived, he fought in World War I, right? Him and C.S. Lewis, they had a lifelong friendship. They were both veterans of that war, and he saw, what happens when you do or don't stand up to absolute evil in the world. And he was not a fan of allegory. He didn't like it, but a lot of his themes are very Christian in nature, right? The concept of like Gandalf being like an archangel sent down from heaven, right, to shepherd these people through this journey against the darkness, right? You have Sauron, the entire concept of like a fallen angel, where he was previously one of these. He was basically, him and Gandalf were the same kind of being, and he fell, right? And he actually, and it's almost, I don't want to say allegory because Tolkien hated allegory, but the comparison that's similar is Satan, the fallen angel, right? And Sauron's original role was he was the giver of gifts. He gave gifts to the elves and men and dwarves when they first came into being or whatever in the mythology and in the appendices and stuff. And then when he falls from grace and he follows Morgoth, who is more closely aligned with like a representation of like Satan, he becomes Sauron the Deceiver. So then when he's giving out these rings as gifts, he's like secretly, putting in a way to control these races and manipulate them into doing his bidding. And so the whole concept is very Christian in nature. And we've got people on the right that have no idea what they're talking about. And this bothers me because as Drew and I have said repeatedly, we need to participate in culture. We need to participate in pop culture because that is what affects politics. Even Charlie Kirk said, politics is downstream of culture, and Tolkien has been a huge part of culture since the books were written. In fact, the only reason we have 3 Lord of the Rings books is because they couldn't print it all as one book back in the day because of the paper shortage from the war. Um, and, and it's just Jack Posobiec has a really dumb take on this, and we'll get into that in a minute. But before we jump any further, I just want to, you guys, Peter Jackson, respect for the original storytelling. Do you think we're going to get that from Stephen Colbert and his son, who has no film in his history?
No.
These people are ideologically captured, right? Like Stephen Colbert, he doesn't care about representing the artist's original intention. Like, the thing you have to understand, most leftists have a tendency to not actually care about other people's thoughts and ideas. They care about their own. Now, they also have a tendency to like follow kind of like blindly, but it's like they're basically adopting that they think they know better. So Stephen Colbert is going to be like, well, I want to retell this story from my perspective because what would this old guy have known about what it's like to be in modern times, instead of doing what a true fan would do, right? Someone that actually respects the original work, say, I'm going to take the original work, and the things that you can add a little bit of flair to might just be like updating the story from a more modern perspective. But even that, I think that's too high of a ask for any of these leftists, because they want to be like, no, I'm going to inject all of my ideology into this IP, and that's why people hate it.
Yeah, the thing that I gravitated towards most with Lord of the Rings, less so on the fantasy part, was the battles. Like I jumped into that, especially in the second and third movie. It was incredible after being in the military, was to see like the different, the leadership styles, the battles that they do, even if it is, orcs and different things like that. You could see where it came from. Like you could tell that he came, what was it, World War I he was in? And so it's
Literally
cool
survived the Battle of the Song.
Yeah. So it highlights his history and where that kind of stuff comes from. And just like you said, AK, Steve, it's going to highlight Stephen Colbert's history in whatever, the Colbert Report, the Late Show. It's just, that's what people are going to pull from now. It's like these people don't have real life experiences anymore of tough times, of adversity, of real. It's just what they're currently kind of going through.
And I'm just going to read, we got one comment from Milagros in Spanish, the translator, which I think maybe the guy is listening in his native language is Spanish. But I love seeing you do something new, and especially that you're passionate about alongside your colleagues. Go for it. So shout out. And for those of you watching, make sure
That's
to drop
from our
your
international
comments.
audience in Peru.
Make sure to drop your comments. Make sure that you guys are hitting the like button. Make sure you guys are sharing the stream. But yeah, throughout the show, we'll definitely mention your comments and bring it up as part of our conversation. But I did want to say as well, when I talk about the left has a tendency to do this, obviously we know that people that are artistic tend to be more like liberal in a lot of their views. But I think that before we allowed this like overt Marxism to infect people's brains, that people would still be like, I'm going to, again, show kind of my interpretation. But now these Marxists, these leftists, when I say that like they are so bent on revolution, I think even someone like Stephen Colbert, which people are going to roll their eyes and be like, he's a capitalist. What are you talking about? Makes all this money. No, but he believes that this idea of like wokeism is something that he wants to push. So that's why he like injects it into everything he does. But that's, I think the difference is you're going to obviously have your own bias that's going to show through in your work, but they take it a step too far and they just are trying to force their worldview down everyone's throat, and they're going to use their art to actually do that instead of like making it subtle, having it be part of like the larger story or narrative, but that's not what these folks do.
Yeah, there's subtleties for sure, but when it's in your face and you can't avoid it, and it takes you out, and like we talk about, it's like, oh yeah, now I'm comparing it to the news that I just saw, or whatever it is. And it's not only Stephen Colbert. It's going to be, he works for a lot of people, whether it's corporations, Paramount, CBS, whatever the case is. So he has more than one job. It's not like he has just this one job as the late, Tonight Show, type thing. He's going to have contracts and agencies. So anytime he will try to deviate for something in the Lord of the Rings, that someone else is going to be like, hey, are you sure you want to go down that route? There's going to be some blocking out right there, as opposed to somebody like Nolan, who am I thinking about, with the Odyssey. So he's one of those guys where he's going to be, the corporations are going to come to him. They're like, oh, change this. We got some notes from the dailies. And those good directors would be like, nope, I'm good. I'm working on my own thing. Trust me, I'll make you a ton of money. Just like, leave me alone. But Stephen Colbert is one of those guys where he's like, yeah, let's do it all by committee, or what's my next project? And is what I'm doing now going to hinder me from my next possible role? So look at the person of how passionate they are and how much they're going to say no to overwhelming,
I
people that are
unfortunately
going to be
think
like,
that
want to change.
Hollywood lives in an echo chamber. And so Stephen Colbert could come in and be like, let's make Eleanor bisexual, or let's make her a lesbian. And she's going to be the hero of the story. And she's going to teach these three remaining hobbits what they should have done on their adventure. And no one's going to tell him no, because Hollywood exists in an echo chamber. And it's really unfortunate. And, it just feels like all the heroes that we grew up with, right, during our childhoods. I can't speak for you, AK, but me and Drew during our during our childhoods, it's like they've all gotten dragged to HR, and we just watch a full movie of them getting talked down to. Right, they did it with Indiana Jones. Right, the fourth film, he's just getting like back talked and talked down to by a female character that has not earned the right to talk to him like that. Like, we haven't seen her in any sort of solo adventure. She didn't showcase abilities greater than his throughout the entire film, even though they tried to make it look that way. And then you see it with with like the new Star Wars films, right? That where it all had, we had to take Han Solo to HR, and we had to take Luke to HR, and it's just, you just watch them beat down all these like good male archetype characters, and then the fallout of that is then you have all these people getting on the internet and being like, where are all the men? Where are all the men? They
Hey,
grew up
David,
watching.
I did want to ask you, man. So
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
when you talk about like on the right, like let's say Posobiec,
Yep.
saying that whatever it's what's the
We
term
have the
that he
clip,
used?
but
Yeah,
can
let's
get
set
into
that up.
in a second.
I would say let's kind of move on to that topic, and then because we've been talking about Lord of the Rings for almost 30 minutes. And
I
love
let you
it,
go
but-
when you want to talk about aliens. In fact, I was going to give you 30 minutes to go on aliens, but all right, let's do that. Fair enough. Steer me. Never miss the live show. AM, go ahead and play that when you're ready.
Or kind of written almost not concurrently in a sense. And Tolkien always said that he didn't like Narnia because he thought that it was too overtly Christian. And I've heard people try
Not
to make
true.
the argument that Lord of the Rings is overtly Christian. And I hate to burst the bubble, guys, but you're just wrong. There's nothing overtly Christian about Lord of the Rings. There's no church in it. There's no faith in it. There's no Christ figure. There's none of these things. And honestly, Lord of the Rings, if it's anything, Lord of the Rings is overtly pagan.
Lord of the Rings
right, you can kill
it's
it there. You
interesting
can-
actually because
Like, they try to push back, and he doubles down, and I just don't have the bandwidth to listen to something that stupid. Like, you can tell, and they even admit, the other people even admit, well, I haven't watched it in a long time. We know. Look at the stuff you're saying. You have no idea what you're talking about. I can get as passionate about this as AK gets about aliens and space technology weapons. It's, like, then this is how the right loses culture. Is because we don't participate. They haven't watched the films in how long? They if they were going to talk about it on the show, why didn't they watch it the night before? Right? Like, where's your prep work that remotely tells us you're interested in what you're talking about? And then you wonder why all of the pop culture we have, all the things we enjoyed as children, right? All the franchises are getting more and more woke. is because we're not participating in the culture and actually having like an intellectually honest conversation about any of it. Like, there's no Christ figure. The third book is literally called The Return of the King. Like, and it's about the salvation of the human race. Right? You literally have a character die fighting a demon and come back to life, robed in white. Like, what are you talking
let me
about?
ask you. So, obviously, Posobiec has this position, his opinion, and you clearly
Right.
disagree with it.
100%.
But me as an outside critic, right? So, the Return of the King, I think if you want to say the analog that Posobiec, because again they're talking about Chronicles of Narnia, right? Is that Aslan sacrifices himself, right, for whatever Narnia, versus like the Return of the King is different. It's like the king stepped down for different reasons or was captured. Like, is maybe that's where his critique is coming from, versus like an actual like sacrifice himself to return. But not to get too nitpicky, but that's what it
AK, I'm so glad you asked.
Yeah.
So the actual backstory here, and I'll make this quick because I know you want to move on. In the original works, you have the War of the Last Alliance, right? They beat Sauron, they take the ring, they cut it off his finger, right? And mankind has this chance, throw it in the lava, right? And would defeat evil. It strips Sauron of his ability to ever take a physical form and reinvade this world, right? And Isildur, the person that's basically the leader of the human race at that point, succumbs to the ring, doesn't destroy it, keeps it as an heirloom of the family, binds his entire family's, like his bloodline, to the fate of this object, and then he gets killed, and the kingdom of men falls into ruin. So you have all these little separate kingdoms. That's how you end up with like Rohan and the kingdoms in the north, and Gondor over here. What's left of the Númenóreans, and they're a civilization in decline essentially at the start of these books, and they have this tree, and there's a prophecy. The tree will bloom again when the king returns, but the tree's been dead for years, and there's people are losing hope or belief that the tree will ever bloom again. And the character Aragorn is a descendant of Isildur. He's the last descendant, and he's been living out in the wilds as a ranger, right? He's denied his birthright. Nobody in his family tree has stepped up to the plate. And he finally has to step up to the plate and unite these fractured kingdoms of men against this great evil, because the elves are leaving, the dwarves are hiding in their tunnels, mining for riches. They're not interested, and they're busy defending their own borders from orcs that are in the books. Everybody's getting beat up, but the elves are leaving, and the dwarves are doubling down on defense, so they're not jumping up to help. So he has to lead basically what's left of mankind against this evil, and overcome it. So it's returning because like this family line was gone, and it's very, I don't want to say allegory because Tolkien hated allegory, but it's similar in themes to like the fall of man, right? And then you have the Christ figure who returns and redeems the world from evil, and it's not exact parallel, but you can see the theme there, right? Where you have this high race of men. They're like 7 feet tall. They're incredible warriors, and they fall victim to this ring, right? Their leader doesn't get rid of it, and then his descendant, thousands of years later, after everybody forgets everything that happened and why they should be, not okay with this object existing in their world, has to step up to the plate and finish the job his ancestor couldn't do. Save the human race.
Let me ask you a question. So, in regards to if you want to say the base of the different races in Middle Earth, without Sauron, is there evil, or is Sauron the source of evil? So, and what I mean by that is like in Chronicles of Narnia, kind of like their aspect is that like evil is always going to be there, but you have to be able to like turn towards whatever, like that's where like more of the Christian allegory comes through. And I'm curious that maybe that's where like Posobiec has more of his grief, is that maybe it's a general like, what is the nature of those on Middle Earth? Is the nature generally good, or is there a sinful nature with all of us within that? But yeah, like I said,
So that is a
I'm just
great
kinda
question.
curious. Yeah.
So actually, Sauron is basically like a puppet of a much greater evil called Morgoth, and I don't want to get into the whole thing, but there's this high.
So
this
maybe
high being.
Posobiec is just a Lord of the Rings hater.
I think that's what it is, because there's a high being, and he's got this group of like angelic beings that basically serve him, and when they're creating the world, it's like the way Tolkien describes it is they're writing music, right? So they're creating this beautiful song and all these races and the plants and then there's one being rebels against everybody else. Sound familiar? And he starts writing unharmonious music, and it's Morgoth, and so the others have to like rewrite their music to like resist this like it's like dueling drums or dueling bands, if you will, and
We found David's passion here.
oh my God, absolutely. And like there's a huge war in Middle Earth, and like everybody almost gets wiped out, and like basically these angelic beings and even the singular god being has to come down and basically stomp Morgoth to pieces. He's banished from the realm of existence or whatever, and then but his servant, one of his servants, Sauron, is still there, and and he's the gift giver who becomes the deceiver, and he takes. So there's always evil there. Yeah, and there's bigotry within the races. Like, ironically, all the modern themes about like overcoming racism and bigotry and all this stuff is literally written into the lore, because the dwarves and the elves have this like ancient feud back and forth. They get along sometimes, and sometimes they want to kill each other in battle, right? The humans have risen up and attacked the elves. Everybody's got beef, and they all have to like squash it at the end. And there's this great scene in the film.
I like it. It's at least interesting that on the left they all talk the same way and stuff like that, and then they people that aren't on the left, they're like, oh, you guys agree with everybody, and right now it's not the case, especially when it comes to pop culture. So let me throw a clip up here of Friday Night Tights talking about Jack Posobiec, and then he got ratioed, and then he was referencing like Wikipedia and stuff. So let me put this up there. Yeah, so I was just with these guys in MegaCon.
Yeah, no, do it. Yeah.
Creative bankruptcy at its finest.
I mean, I'm not really interested in Lord of the Rings anymore. It's all pagan nonsense. So.
Well,
there you go.
From a Roman Catholic.
I know, seriously.
Well,
it got community noted. Yep, it got community noted.
Oh no!
I love the sources, man.
Doesn't he also have like a video game take too? That
a lot of bad takes.
A lot of bad.
He's got
he Tulsa King. He said Tulsa King was woke, which was like, no, it wasn't. At least when he said it, there was no issues with it. And I ratioed him, and he got mad at me and blocked me.
Did the same thing to me.
Yeah. So
Where's
I mean,
block?
yeah. So he's had his pop culture takes are
They're
horrendous.
shit.
Yeah,
Shall we?
Really bad.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I just share that to
is
say
a
that
deserved take.
we can all disagree with each other on politics and pop culture and call each other out and be like, hey, I was wrong. But some people will double down and triple down. But at least we're having discussions. I like that part of it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, even with
I
your
agree with the
friends,
video.
You can call your high school friends, your college friends out on when they're acting like an idiot or saying the wrong thing, and you can still be friends like later on, or still whatever.
Listen,
not be a crazy woke person.
Yes. When I was talking about
anti-Posobiec.
Yeah, I mean, Posobiec, I think, has a lot of great takes on a lot of great things.
Just pro Lord of the Rings, or do you just not care? Are you like AK and you're like, let's get to aliens?
Yeah, like I said, like Posobiec has a lot of great takes on a lot of great things, but obviously his own opinion on certain types of IP, I usually don't vibe with. I'm like, I'm not seeing things that way at all. But I will say this, right? When Joe Rogan called Mega a bunch of dorks, that was actually the correct pejorative that he used. He didn't use nerd or geek. He used dorks. I think that sometimes having this conversation is that we can beat back the dorkishness and be like, dude, just accept that it's a very popular IP. Like, no matter what, if I will never say, oh, this is a dumb, dorky IP. I'm going to say, no, this is like one of the most popular IPs of like all of human history. If we're being real, just based off of the books, based off of the movies, how much money it's garnered, based off of all the spinoffs and everything, right? You can still just say, even though that's true, I just don't like it. And that doesn't make you a dork. What makes you a dork is when you are, in my opinion, like trying to tell people not to like it that clearly do. Like that's some
Yeah,
dork,
well,
that's a dork mentality.
that's where it goes into play. You have your own things that you like, and when you're stomping on somebody else's that makes them happy that they're into, that's when you're crossing the line, you know. And it can relate to politics too. It's like and Joe Rogan, like you said, it's like I knew where Joe Rogan was coming from. Like there are some the nutballs out there. So I think he's seeing that, just like you know, you see things, whatever, but he's not looking at the whole idea of it. So yeah, I mean, I was like that with Star Trek for the longest time. I'm like, nope, I didn't grow up on it. It wasn't my thing. I never jumped into any version of it until like the later movies. And then I started hanging out with like, you know, certain groups and they were like, yes, I'm so into it. I'm like, oh yeah, tell me more, you know? And then I watched like an episode and I'm like, oh, that was actually pretty good. Or actually, that was not only good, it's better than all the crap that's being put out lately. And it actually got me thinking. So like I enjoy more things, especially when I can ask somebody, oh, well, why are you into it? Or why do you like that kind of thing? And you know, show me something. And like Game of Thrones, I was not into it at all. Well, for one, I couldn't jump into something that was already 4 seasons into it. I don't know. I'm a completionist, and then I also need to start from the beginning. And so, same thing with Lord of the Rings. I would really have to read the books from the beginning, and I'll get around to it eventually, but not at the moment. But
You would
I
have a
totally
fantastic
respect
read.
totally respect other people's. Like I've been to some conventions now, and it's just cool to see people's passions. Because I really got to the point where it's like, okay, I don't like when people shit on my things that I like, especially like things related to America, patriotism, the military, the army, whatever you want to call it. It's like I got to the point in my adulthood where I'm just like, no, you're not gonna. I'm not gonna hang around you if you're gonna shit on the things that I like.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I'll close it with this. Right, it goes back to like you were saying, respecting the original, you know, the original author's intent or the original IP, and it ties into what we were talking about with Harry Potter, right? And them recasting Snape as a black character, and now you create all these additional, you know, cultural issues and themes. Like that character gets bullied by the main character's father when they're schoolmates, and so now you're gonna have a black kid getting bullied by a bunch of white wizards. Like it's just it just you're creating extra conflict that doesn't need to be there, and it's yeah, just respect the original, you know, what's going to bring the fans in to watch your films or your TV shows is when you honor the original concept, right? It's the issue Marvel's having, it's the issue Star Wars is having. We're now going to see it with Lord of the Rings, and that's a deep fan base. Like Amazon's show is not liked by anybody who read the books, and there's a reason for it. I mean, maybe there's a few out there that are like, I just like the story, but we'll wrap this topic because I could go on the entire. We could do an entire episode on Lord of the Rings, and I still would be. AK would still have more questions that I would have the answers to. But so while everybody in Middle Earth is waiting for the return of the king, here in America, we got rid of kings back in 1776. But somebody forgot to tell the Democratic Party, and that's going to be our lead in here for this next topic. Is that everywhere across the country there were some no kings rallies, and it's really interesting because the Party of Peace and the Party of Love and Acceptance committed a lot of crimes this weekend with their No Kings rallies. AK, this I know you were looking into some different things with this. Why don't you take off on this topic for us? Kind of lead us into it a little.
Yeah, so just again, I'll just give like a rundown of what the story is so far. But if you guys remember, right after President Trump was inaugurated, the Democrats, and I'm just going to give you kind of my analysis, they realized that with the popularity that Donald Trump had and the MAGA movement had, that they would have to start a completely inorganic but powerful, narrative to try and get everyone excited that doesn't want Donald Trump and Republicans to be in control, to try and find something to like galvanize them and keep them together and have a constant narrative machine that's beating down and back against what was clearly very popular in the United States, but by again, President Trump winning the popular vote and the Electoral College. So what was born was this idea that let's have a no kings type of event. And so basically when President Trump started issuing executive orders, they were like, who do you think you are, a king? And so the first no kings rally that popped off, people were saying, this is going to be this huge organic move, and a lot of it was centered around executive orders that were being passed, and President Trump basically defying federal judges' universal injunctions. But at the end of the day, it kind of like got the ball rolling. And then after basically you started to have some ICE activity starting to pick up across the country, then they had their second No Kings rally, and they started to say, President Trump is out there and he's kidnapping people with ICE and everything like that. And so then that leads us into this third No Kings rally, in which Minnesota was actually ground zero. Like, we were the flagship rally. So all these rallies are happening around the country. And I want to give you guys something that will be easy to have an analog for. Back in 2008, when Obama won, right, what happened in 2010? Well, historically, when you have one party come in and they take over the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they have a trifecta, typically the next election, 2 years later, you will see those powers flip. That's happened in like 90% of all the times that we've had a trifecta. It's flipped over to the other party. And if you remember, we had the Tea Party movement. You guys remember the Tea Party movement? So that was also something that was started, but it wasn't inorganic. Like, it truly was a bunch of people were just like, this is so crazy how much our country has changed so quickly. And then you started to have the Tea Party rallies. And what happened in 2010? Republicans were able to take back control. So that's where this was all born from. So I want to give you guys an understanding of that's what all of this initially comes from. And then when you kind of move forward, you can see how hard they're trying to make this a thing. But like, the very basic premise, when you think about it, right, is that we don't have kings in America. Just even that kind of posturing literally makes no sense, because we don't have kings. We literally have a president that had the highest vote total of, any Republican in modern history, and he won the popular vote. So it's like, of course we don't have a king. Now, Drew.
Well, and the
sounds
last
like you
couple
have
elections, Kamala Harris, it was Joe Biden, right? That was going to, up until like, what was it, the last 6 months of the election or something like that? Or like campaign season. And then Kamala Harris, that didn't win a primary, wasn't nominated, even before that, 4 years before, bowed out before was a California primary to not look bad. And then in that last one, they just threw her in. Like, that seems more like an authoritarian type king mentality, is to just plop somebody in and be like, Joe Biden's out. And like, you guys know, because you're following politics, I was following at the time with the campaign. Everyone's like, is Joe gonna leave? Is Joe gonna, leave this earth, before the campaign season? Like, there was a lot of stuff that was like, is he even healthy enough to make it? And then he kept coming out and saying, be like, nope, I'm here. There's nothing going to stop me. And then it got to like the summer and be like, all right, I'm out, guys. And then it's like, ploop, put Kamala right in there. So yeah, you look at that kind of stuff. And then you can even go back farther in 2016 with Bernie Sanders getting more votes than Hillary Clinton and popularity. And then you saw him just go away, because both, a lot of people were on the Bernie train, Bernie bros, Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, a lot of these people. And then they saw that, Bernie just got kicked to the side. And a lot of people said Trump is like the new Bernie Sanders in that kind of way. So a lot of people gravitated towards Trump in that kind of section. So yeah, we got some video from Portland of people wilding out. I don't know if I'm using that phrase right. I am white.
Nope. Yep. You just sometimes make the D silent, so it's wildin, not wildin, but it is spelled wildin.
Got it.
Wow.
The
You'll
mention
learn so
of
much
it
on this show. We went from
The
Tolkien's
intent.
lore to wiling out.
I was going for intent, but thank you
I
for
love it.
clarifying the.
That's what I'm here for.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
What in the Oscar the Grouch is happening here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is in Portland. Breaking a couple days ago, riders have breached the ICE facility in Portland, breaking the gate that controls ingress and egress. And then DHS officers, federal law enforcement, responded, remove barricades. So yeah, it's wild. We saw the 2020 Summer of Love that lasted quite a bit long, more than your typical things, and now we've had protests and rioters for the past like 4 or 5 months now that we've been covering it, and it's just I really don't know. I say the history books, but how is history going to look on this? Like, look at this. Look at what is this? It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't know. I get sick of talking about it because we're just talking
That's
about
the
the same
Vikings'
kinda
new
thing.
linebacker right there. That's what that is. Holy
know.
buckets.
Yeah, let me
Good
throw another one in
night.
there.
Yeah, I mean, here's what it comes down to, right? And when you get done sharing that, I'll just kind of show you. But, this showing
Right,
the
so this
protesters
is them
going on
leaving.
or whatever, that's not really the significant part.
Here we go.
You know what I would say is here's what's more significant than anything else.
Hey, AK, you're gonna have to repeat what you were saying.
Yeah, it
'Cause
was
I
the
couldn't-
video was
we couldn't hear
playing.
you over the video.
Yeah. So I
Sorry
think
about that, chat.
Yeah, I mean what is more significant is not that they're being violent protesters. Like we know that they're violent protesters. This is what's more significant in my honest estimation, because the point is what? It's not to like galvanize people to go and be violent and riotous. Like that's literally not the point. The point is to show that look at all the people that actually want to help. Throw out this king that we have. So I mean, I'm going to play this clip right here, but this is just kind of give you an understanding. This is the way that the media is going to frame it. So if you look, right, New York City, Los Angeles, Austin, West Palm Beach, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Charlotte, North Carolina, and obviously the flagship here in Minneapolis. And so here's how they framed it, that there was 8 million people across the entire United States that took basically,
people that I elected are not taking a stand. They're not being outraged with us. They're not holding the line. They're not doing their job to save democracy.
I've been a MAGA supporter from the very beginning. I believed in him. I thought that he would end wars, like he said in his campaign. He said he wouldn't start wars. He said he'd bring peace to the Middle East. Now look at us. We're further from peace and closer to catastrophe than ever before.
Now, the reason, again, that I think this is what's more significant than them rioting or whatever is that they're trying to sell this narrative. Do I believe that this guy is a mega supporter? No. Could he have been? Maybe. But, I think that's the point, is they're trying to be like, oh, this was the largest protest in American history. That's the narrative they're trying to push. Do I actually believe that? I don't believe that. I don't believe that 8 million people showed up, but let's just say that they did. That's still significantly less than the 77 million that just voted for President Trump and that actually did something that mattered. But this is the narrative they're trying to seed. So that's the important part to me of all of this, is just when you understand that their goal is to just create a narrative that makes it seem as though this is a inevitability that Democrats are going to win in the midterms. That's what they're trying to do. And it's nonsense, because again, like this guy, what does he want to stop? What does he think protesting will actually stop? The president is still the president for 2.5 more years, man. That's not going to stop. So what are you doing? So yeah, that's just my piece. What are your thoughts?
Well,
there,
it
David?
wasn't.
Or Drew?
No, it's not the largest protest. I didn't honestly I follow the news, and I was at an event, or I think I was just meeting with some friends, and we heard some sirens, and I'm like, wait, is there a protest going on? And they're like, yeah, no kings. I'm like, okay, of course there is. Of course there's just another protest, and it's like, what for at this point? There's always gonna be something, and it's getting so tired. And like you said, AK, what is it going to change? It's like, no, he didn't. Trump didn't even run on no war with Iran or ending wars. That he said stuff in speeches and rallies, but it was like getting out of forever wars and stuff like that. And that's not the same. And this is a big thing with like libertarians right now. It's like they're all Dave Smith is on a tirade right now and everything. It's getting so exhausting. It's like that. My theory now is AI has come to save us from ourselves, having access to streaming and internet and our voice be able to just go out there and messing with people. So yeah, maybe AI is here to kind of shut us up a little bit and check ourselves and go out and hang out with your neighbors. And it's really not that bad.
Coming back to pop culture for a second, Drew, have you not seen Terminator, Battlestar Galactica, or any of that? What a hot take! I love it, but I love when we don't 100% agree on stuff.
Well,
I also have
final.
another thing.
It's not the final plan. It's just
right. Yeah,
it's
no,
like
absolutely.
a fail safe, so that we can go back to making things with our hands and living
Right.
off the land a little bit more than.
AM, I have this article. So one of the No Kings rallies, we got to see the left do something that, as a veteran, Drew, I'm sure you're going to feel a certain way about this. But yeah, AM, if you could put that up real quick, I can try to open it on my end. Oh wait, never mind. It looks like we got it here. So, oh, you can scroll down to the article. You don't have to play the video. Thank you. So, Hernando County. Wow, this thing's got some ads. Hernando County Democratic Party Chair Brian Stewart this is a local newspaper from down there, was arrested on a misdemeanor battery charge Saturday after an incident at a No Kings protest in Spring Hill. The arrest followed a confrontation between Stewart and a counter-protester at the demonstration near Cortez Boulevard and Mariner Boulevard. Details of exactly what happened are disputed, but basically he got up in a veteran's face. Here we go. A statement from the Hernando County Conservatives Organization says Stewart shoved a disabled military veteran who had come to the event as a MAGA supporter and then struck him in the head with a megaphone. This highlights the growing intolerance and dangerous radicalism within certain elements of the Democratic Party in Hernando County and across the nation, the letter says, and calls for the Florida Democratic Party Chair Nikki Fried to remove Stewart as chairman. Initial thoughts, Drew, and then over to you, AK. From one vet to another, this is why the left is losing certain groups like the veterans community, like certain minority groups that have a high veterans community, like the Hmong or certain parts of the Hispanic community. What's your read on this?
They're gonna take it too far in all these kind of aspects. Either going back to before, destroying creativity, because there are Harry Potter fans, there are Lord of the Rings fans that aren't political, that aren't one side, and it destroys them. Same with this. There are veterans, there are family members of veterans that's like, okay, liberals, you had me all the way up until here, and now you've gotten out of line. Yep, I was going to go to your peaceful protest, but now you're throwing things at police officers and rocks and stuff like that, and then they're doing this. And now I'm in a riot. Like, I've heard stories from people I know that they're like, yep, I came for this one issue, and now it's a crazy circus, and I don't want to be a part of any of that. So now I'm just apolitical or politically homeless or whatever the case is. People are going to get sick of it, especially when it hits something close to home, like being a veteran, disabled veteran, having family members that are, like this. And it's getting so ridiculous, dividing friends, dividing family, putting your job on the line because you say the wrong thing. I don't know. It's not going to be a good society when we just have to bite our tongue because you don't know if you're going to say the wrong thing with the wrong group that's going to have an impact on your family, your career, your finances, whatever the case is. And you're just overall can't we all just get along, have our differences, but then still be able to cook hot dogs and hamburgers and have a good time? And
yeah, man.
No, Drew, we can't.
Apparently not. Gosh.
Yeah.
AK, what about you?
I mean, listen, the fact that a guy attacked a guy that's a disabled veteran, is par for the course. I think most people understand in this day and age, the radical left, they hate America. Like they literally hate everything that America stands for. But that's not the average American. So the radical left, even though they've been empowered by the Democrats because that was basically like their way of trying to ensure that they can keep political power across the country, that beast is now becoming so dangerous to their overall political objectives. They're trying to find ways to like basically shed them. There was just a story kind of going around, and you can argue whether or not it was too carefully placed or a leaked story that maybe wasn't 100% true, but I could see it because this is the way Democrats operate. But basically, there are Democrat high-end operatives, like if you could call me a high-end Republican operative, right? I'm not chair, but a committee man for the Republican National Committee. I have conversations with all the other high party officials across the country on a regular and frequent basis. And so basically the DNC had a leak that they really need to try and push a straight white Christian male as their main nominee in 2028. And I think that that's just the truth, that the left has gone so far that they realize, like, man, if we can't just get some like normal people, like we are screwed, because in their party, their activists are attacking veterans on a regular basis because these people are so deranged. When they see an American flag, it triggers them. One of the reasons I wear this American flag hat is because, sadly, it's become like a huge, like, kind of like sign that I'm a conservative and Republican. Like it has, and it shouldn't. It's the American flag. Every American should be proud of America. But people will see my flag and they'll be like, I love your hat. Thank you for wearing that hat. And it's like, that's crazy. But this is what Democrats have wrought. That's where they're at. So yeah, I'm not surprised that one of these crazy No Kings protesters attacked a veteran who served this country.
And they use it, just for a tool for their own thing. And it gets me so sick because like I always see like, okay, who's profiting from it? Like follow the money, and like why are these people doing a certain thing? And what will happen if they get their way? It's like, okay, whatever, you get rid of Trump, and then it's who? Because they said the same thing about McCain and Romney and Bush and Bush and all and Reagan. It always goes back. It's going to be the same line no matter who it is, and it's obviously not going to be Trump in a couple of years, and it's just going to be the same stuff. I used to think like, okay, find common ground. Can we talk about an off ramp? And it's like, no, it just keeps heating up, and it's getting absolutely ridiculous, and I don't know. Really not good for society.
I agree with you. Like it's, you've heard multiple people say this over the last, pretty much since the tragedy we had last September with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it's, it's not even left versus right anymore. It's like sane, normal people versus these fringe people, and a lot of them are on the left. We got some on the right, but that are just so far gone afield that you can't really talk, negotiate, or work with them at all.
Well, yeah, and then the whole thing with Hassan Piker is that he goes to like Cuba and everything, and this guy is talking he's claimed socialism, communism, other people think, and he's making how much millions of dollars has he made off YouTube and all the different things he does, and it doesn't connect to reality. And I don't know, does it just trick the average person? George Carlin says, think about how stupid the average person is, and then realize half are even more stupid than that. And it's just like, I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe we keep talking about Hollywood. Maybe because Hollywood is getting more decentralized into, all of us doing YouTube. Maybe this is the outlet that our people are going to go to and just going to feed their money. And
I look at
life, going to try to profit it. Well, I'm just going to say real quick, and then even on the other side, Candace Owens, all these people are attacking other people, thought they were on the same page with stuff, and instead it's like, okay, now they're just going for, it's just a money thing. I don't know.
We're
I'm
stepping into
finding
the age of the grift. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the maximizing the grift to no other.
Yeah.
I don't get it,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. I'm just looking for authenticity.
Yeah, I think this ties back to, even our first topic a little bit when we're talking about like pop culture. Like there are people, when it comes to like the masses, everybody's got so much stuff going on, right? Life's getting more expensive, right? The price of everything's going up all the time. Buying a home is getting more difficult, right? Our phones have a bajillion distractions on them so that we don't actually have to pay attention to life. And there's a huge subset of people that treat politics and national news the way AK treats Lord of the Rings. They're just like, it's there. I heard about it. I'm not really that interested in it, right? And that's not a knock on you, AK. That's just it goes back to that thing, right? Where we have our interests, right? Like some people love history, some people love politics, some people like, technology, tech advancements and news, right? Like most people have less interests nowadays because they can't afford to because they're working and they're pulling double shifts overtime, right? Mom's working, dad's working. As soon as the oldest kid hits 16, he can get a paper out, right? He's out working or she's out working. And so that's kind of how we ended up here. But speaking of AK's interests, I'm gonna make him
Sorry,
real
I was gonna
happy.
go to
Oh,
mine real
you have
quick.
something for us?
Yeah, just a real quick. I
Yeah,
saw
throw it
this
up.
come across, and it's related to like what we're all talking about when it comes to money and just feeding more of politicians and blue states. So we got Bob Ferguson, governor of Washington State, signs the millionaire tax into law, and so this is what you think it was. So basically, if you earn more than $1 million in a year, and isn't that like a goal of a lot of people, or at least it was, a while ago, and that felt like a lot of money. But nowadays, like you start making some money, and you can make more than $1 million quickly. Bernie Sanders is like, oh, you sell a book, and you're a millionaire, and then you got this, and so now it's an extra amount of money, 9.9%, and I think a lot of the people are saying this is unconstitutional. There's a lot that's unconstitutional. Like they said, they don't care about the original stuff, just what they can use from it. And so it's just another tax. And a lot of people you're probably listening to this. I'm not in this category of making $1 million a year. I'm guessing the two guys on here aren't
Not
either.
yet.
Not yet, but we could be on our way.
Yes,
like
that's
that.
right.
That
Yet
could be
is
like
the
a real.
key.
No, seriously,
Yes.
that could be a goal. Like we could make a podcast or sell a book or sell a script or whatever the case is. Like it's
Well,
possible.
I mean, if
so
you
you're
leverage
ruining-
life, because life isn't just one thing, right? Like you can leverage like the podcast being profitable, which can leverage into public speaking events where some of those engagements, like some of those celebrity people like Myron or Candace, whether you agree with them or not, or even the people you do agree with, people from the Daily Wire or wherever in political space, you can get like paid $250,000 depending on the event to go speak. So you're absolutely right. It's totally an attainable dream, and I think you should aim for it. But they're slowly
most
trying to take
important
the American
part-
dream from us with this sort of stuff.
it never ends with that top class. It'll always come downward. For one, it'll cause like a shift. So people like, okay, are people that are going to be making more than $1 million, especially a lot of $1 million in Washington, going to leave and go to Idaho, go to Montana, go to Arizona, Florida, Texas? Of course there are. You've already seen it in California. And not so that's going to, mess up businesses, and it's going to cause all this, changes. Not only that, it never stops there. They're going to bring it downward every single time, and it's going to get closer and closer to what the average person is making. And just like how the income tax, we never used to have an income tax. Everyone thinks that like, oh yeah, it's just always been there. No, before something like whatever it was, 1913, like we didn't have an income tax. Sadly, it first came from Lincoln, and it was a temporary thing. It was meant to end. It was supposed to sunset, and they're like, "Hey, we made a lot of money off this. Let's keep this, or let's bring it back, or keep going." And I don't like any of this because, yeah, it just puts us more into a class system rather than a race one, like people are saying this.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, if you think about it, for progressives, for the left, their entire premise is that the rich don't pay their fair share. And this has been unequivocally debunked a million times, because what they're saying by fair share is they believe that if you make, let's say, $50,000 and your overall, let's say, tax burden is like 15 point, let's say 15% or something, then you should say, well, a millionaire should have the exact same amount of, if you want to say, burden on what it affects to their life, but it doesn't scale that way. And what ends up being true is that, yes, if you're a millionaire, it is easier for you to have all the basic necessities of your life. So when you pay these extra taxes, it's never going to be the same in regards to, are you going to make different decisions about your lifestyle and choice because you have this tax? And so ultimately, when you put in a millionaire tax, it's the way that the progressive left tries to say, let's make it hurt for them, and then we will turn around and fund it. But nothing happens in a vacuum. So we have a progressive tax system, which means that the higher you earn, the more of a percentage you have to pay. But we also do allow for tax breaks for those, because we found that tax breaks incentivize people to actually make more money instead of just being regressive and saying, if you make X amount of dollars, you're going to get a huge percentage tax increase, then people will keep their money underneath that. But the left just thinks if they tax millionaires, that they'll be able to count all the millionaires and say, look how much extra revenue we can make. What's going to happen in reality? Those millionaires are going to stop making millions by either leaving, or they will find ways to diversify their assets so they don't actually have to get taxed on it. Because newsflash, if you do this in one state, there's 49 other states to go to. So it's the dumbest thing possible.
Well, and the other thing they'll do is they'll reduce expenses, right? We see that the greatest example is the grocery stores and the fast food market, right? Like, you can't go into well, I mean, you shouldn't be eating fast food, Maha, just saying, go carnivore. But I had to throw that in there. But like, you go into a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Wendy's, any of that stuff now, it's kiosks. There's like one or two people working, right? You're talking to a robot the rest of the time, right? You go to the grocery store and the big things was self-checkout, right? And I mean, they're kind of pulling that back because they realized that a lot of shoplifting was happening from that, and that maybe it was a failed experiment at reducing expenses. So if you tax these people that extra percentage, they're going to find a way to recover it somewhere in their business. I mean, why do you think AI's taken off so much? If you can replace half of your workforce, right, or even the higher level people in your workforce where you've got people working for AI, an AI manager or something, like, you're going to save those expenses. So even if we tax them, yeah, there's going to be one of two outcomes. They're going to leave, or the people in the middle that are trying to come up are going to be the ones that pay the price, because all of a sudden the jobs that they were relying on while they're building their assets and maybe trying to get to $1 million a year, well, suddenly those jobs are gone because they're replaced by AI or computer kiosks or whatever. And that's from like the minimum wage McDonald's employee all the way up to like, the manager of sales at a company.
We're talking about this. Does the average person actually think like this? Like, and I say that because like I never did until a certain point, because like, oh, now I'm learning, how this works. As property tax, for one, my property tax keeps going up and up, and I'm not doing anything to my house. My neighbors aren't really doing anything to their house, and somehow I have to pay more in property tax and homeowners insurance, which they're like, oh yeah, because of hurricanes in Florida or fires in Hawaii. And I'm like, what? If we didn't have internet or TV, I would assume that person is just like trying to scam me. I'm like, yeah, that's not really, shouldn't be affecting my stuff, but of course it does. And yeah, it's just getting ridiculous. And yeah, and it puts,
and it
just
goes
the
back to
bar.
what we were saying before about like people being distracted, right? You have bills, you have this, you have that going on, your kids in 100 sports, you have all this, like, and not that there's anything wrong with like that particular, but just all of it stacked on top of each other. You're right. The average person just sitting there like, my bills keep going up, or I make 80,000 a year, and 5 years ago 80,000 went further than it does now. What's going on? And it's not until it starts to hurt in the wallet, like at a significant
it's
enough
too
level
late.
where most people lift up their head and see what's going on. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Then
Well, that's the
then
thing.
it is
It's
too late.
like a lot of these things, people are like, oh, put it on automatic payment, makes it easier, or put it on automatic payment, will give you a 5% discount, or now they say we'll charge you more if you do paper copies or don't do automatic payment. And it's just, it's getting too much. They prey on people that are either dumb or busy. So it's like, you can't be, busy doing your other things because you'll get, kind of scammed, or you can't be, ignorant to it. So you got to pay attention. and it's exhausting. Like I'm sure you guys know to pay
Convenience
attention.
costs you awareness. in my
Yeah,
humble
you're not
opinion.
wrong, dude. You're not wrong. I mean, there's an entire economy built on the idea of people being so busy with their life and for income kind of flowing through and always having like these fluctuating amounts that if you like, even my mother-in-law, right? Shout out to my mother-in-law, Debbie. She's old school in the point that even when she uses her debit card, she always gets a receipt and she writes it down in her check register. That is such an odd, like, I get it. Like back in the day when I was in high school, like we had like balance your checkbook, but I'm so like, there's so many different transactions of money flowing around. I'm like, I'm going to log in, I'm going to see what it is. And then that's what it is. But I will say that sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm still paying this subscription that's been on for like 2 years and I literally haven't used this app.
AK, that'll blow your mind. But even when you add up, like I've been doing this lately, I've been tracking everything I do and all my memberships. Like I know when each comes out, and people are like, "Oh, you're so awesome at that." I'm like, "No, I just started to really pay attention, and it's helped out because you turn off like a $35 monthly payment, and you think about how much that is times 12 times 5 times whatever it is, 30, and how much that could have been, and then do it in a calculator at like 10% rate of return if you put it into a Roth IRA or just a general fund or anything. It's like that all turns into a lot of money. So that is how you become wealthy, is you pay attention and you change your behavior. And it's over time. It's slowly. It's not like hitting the lottery, which most lottery winners, end up broke anyways because you're not used to that kind of spend.
But then you think about it. But then you think about now Democrats, right, in Washington have passed a millionaire tax. And so they think that they're going to, again, this idea of like, let's inflict harm or pain to like really get back at millionaires because it's envy. That's what a lot of this, in my opinion, comes down to. It's not going to work though. Like I sometimes am like, are they doing it because they just want to further destroy their state? Because when states like Minnesota and states like Washington that push all this crazy far left policy changes, and you start to see successful business people and their entire apparatus of industry leaving those states, all of that tax-based revenue disappears. So when you talk, Drew, about your property taxes going up, well, why is that for the most part? Well, Democrats in the state legislature passed a bunch of mandates that these school districts have to implement. Well, what happens when a school district has lower enrollment and they are forced to have to still pay for the existing bonds and levies that they have? They have to raise taxes. So it's like bad policy that leads people to leave and for kids to start unenrolling and disenrolling from your school district. So now you're getting even less dollars because of the formula from the state. And then they're raising your property taxes more and more and more and more. And that's how the system works. And like I said,
I swear I didn't know about this stuff until after I left college. It's like I learned up until like college graduation, all the basics, high school, this, that, history, at least a history they wanted to teach us. And then it was that point when I had student debt and credit card debt and car loans and insurance. And it's like, and I was even like, felt like I made it. Like I'm like, I just survived. And now I'm, in the Great Recession. And then it's like, oh, this is how it all works. Like, I swear I learned more from early on Netflix documentaries than anything I did in high school and college. And when it comes to things that actually mattered into how it affect my life. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like you said, AK, your question was, is it an intentional malice type deal? It's like, I like to think it's probably they're trying to get as much money as they can. There's probably ones that know that what they're doing is going to be bad in the long run. And they're like, well, if I pass this right now, I can get mine. I can get mines. There you go. There's my dialect.
It's that whole
let me get mines.
So let's
Yeah.
get it's the same that every drug dealer and every TV show or movie you've ever seen. It's like, if I'm not selling this and destroying the community, someone else will. So since it's me, I'm gonna get the most I can out of it and try to, flee town before this life costs me, right? And I was just looking at it because we were talking about like distracted people and like people not paying attention. And do you guys realize that like when I was in the military, like a Netflix subscription was less than $10, and now if you want
It
a
was
Netflix, that was
five.
DVDs.
I remember it
Yeah,
at $5.
$26.99 a month. And here's the thing: they send out the email, "Hey, your Netflix subscription is going from $12 to $14." How many people open those emails, right? How many people, when the alert comes on your TV, you open up HBO Max, hey, because even like I have some of those streaming services, and like you see the alert on your TV, hey, this is going up in price at the end of June or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, that sucks, but whatever, right? Most people, they have all this stuff on auto pay. They don't look at it, they don't think about it. I actually had this moment where I was slowing down where I was like, do I need this subscription, or this subscription? Fortunately, my phone service thing had a way where I could bundle a bunch of them with ads, which is fine. I don't care. I was in the era where you had like 4-minute commercial breaks between everything. So like one ad is fine for me. But um but yeah, I mean, it's like people don't pay attention to that.
Okay,
And so
here's
they
a
don't
tip.
realize that
Here's 2
subscriptions,
tips.
property management, your property taxes, all this other stuff is all going up.
Well, you have to do it when you're done working. So if you're putting
Yep.
in 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you have to come home and not just go right to drinking, go to partying, go to whatever kids' activities, whatever you do, whatever your thing is. You actually, I read this in a book somewhere. I can't remember the book
All
name.
the
but
softball
it's-
leagues. Shout out to the softball players.
Yeah, but it's something like, okay, you work 8 hours, go home and spend 4 hours working. You're working for somebody else for 8 hours. Go home and work on your own life for 4 hours. And that's where you can do things like this of like line up your budget, see, shop around for your homeowner's insurance before it expires or comes up on the renewal date. And then what I was going to say to you, David, was what I do is if I like pop culture too. If I sign up for HBO Max and they said, here's the monthly rate, here's the annual, I usually go for the annual if it's a better deal. And then they're like, okay, it'll renew, 12 months from now and
100%.
at this rate.
Absolutely.
But if they change rates in that 12 months, it's going to renew at the higher one. And especially if you could try to get a discount. Okay, but the main thing is cancel your credit, or for one, turn off auto pay. So make them
Yes.
forced to say, hey, do you want to stay with us again? Otherwise, what I did recently is I did lose my debit card, so I canceled. And so that did stop payment on, I know, a ton of things. So now I'm just waiting for them to be like, hey, we're ready to charge you again. And I'm gonna be like,
Nice.
nope, I'm okay.
So here's a little life hack for all the listeners, and I don't know if you guys will use this, but if you leave a subscription service, they'll send "We miss you" emails and offer you discounts. I learned this because there was a period of time in my life where I didn't know how to. I was learning how to dress myself better, so I'd have like Trunk Club and all these different clothing subscriptions, and I discovered you cancel it, and then you go to a different one. 4 months later down the road, you can rejoin for 50% off for a month or two. And all the streaming services do that too. You cancel your Netflix for a couple of months, they're going to offer you, hey, come back for $9.99.
And that's the
And,
thing. Take a break.
Like, there's
Like,
ways,
there's
yeah.
nothing
and
wrong.
you have time to do something else with your life. Absolutely, 100%. Even gyms
the
do
big
that,
thing
right? The
is
gym
just,
memberships come
you know,
back
take
for
a-
$1.
Yep, take a break and then wait for it to build up. Because like if you're like me, you watch like everything on Netflix or HBO Max, and you don't even turn it on for weeks. So if you cancel it and then be like, come back in 3 months, you'll have a whole new library. Because that's what. Okay, I could talk about this forever. I'm big on personal finance and accountability and stuff like that. So
We found Drew's passion. Mine is
not getting effed over
pop
by
culture and
systems.
Lord of the
and-
Rings.
yeah,
and his is
people want to talk about
absolute-
corporations being bad. You consent to all this
Yeah.
stuff. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
100%.
So be a better.
It's the same with politics. If you don't get involved, someone else will be deciding your life and how it turns out. But speaking of other people deciding our lives, are we on the precipice of an alien invasion? Our on the ground reporter with his trusty baseball hat, AK Kamara, has some information for us, and I have a hot take theory that I'll get into at some point. But I want AK lead us into this. What's going on with the aliens? Do we need to get laser weapons? What's happening? Here?
And first off, you call this a baseball hat. This is definitely a football hat because baseball sucks. No, it's actually
How?
bad.
Listen. You already crossed the line with Lord of the Rings. Now you just like we're about to sell pay-per-view to a fight one of these days. You watch yourself. I don't appreciate that.
But listen, man, I love space. I love all things concerned with future tech and space. And this was a pretty big one for me. And I want to kind of get into what this entails. And we're going to be tying together a handful of different stories that I think kind of weave a bigger picture that's kind of fascinating. But NASA has unveiled an initiative to achieve America's national space policy. One of the things that President Trump, kind of on the low key, has been about is advancing America's space reach. Obviously, people, they kind of forget, but the big red flag that President Trump loves space is that he created an entirely new branch in the U.S. Armed Forces called Space Force. And through this initiative that was announced, just kind of want to show a couple of things. This is an artist rendering of Phase 3 of the NASA moon base. As part of its ignition event on Tuesday, NASA announced a series of transformative agency-wide initiatives designed to achieve President Donald J. Trump's national space policy and advance American leadership in space. These actions reflect the urgency of the movement and of the moment, but also the tremendous opportunity ahead for world-changing science and discovery. NASA is committed to achieving the near impossible once again to return to the moon before the end of President Trump's term. Let's go! Build a moon base, let's go, and establish an enduring presence and do other things needed to ensure American leadership in space. So at the end of the day, the reason why I think this is super dope is this is where all kind of signs are pointing to, right? Like President Trump is very keen that space is this thing that has always been so inspiring to humans. And after we, won the space race, we've kind of like peeled back. But Elon Musk clearly talks about in order for our species to actually be able to thrive and not go into extinction, we have to become multiplanetary. And everything that he's built around SpaceX, even the AI that he's building, even alternative sources of energy, has all been about making humans multiplanetary. And so when you have the world's technically first trillionaire, which Elon Musk is, saying that this is what he's going to do, President Trump would be a fool to not want to make sure that America is at the front edge of that. And so a couple of things that I wanted to also throw to kind of tie into this is that some people are like, yeah, space is cool. Some people are like, yeah, space is stupid. I'm a person, I love the idea of, what space can offer us. But there are some people, like our vice president, that has some very strong opinions about what is actually in space. So some people are like, yeah, man, humans definitely aren't the only species that exists out there in the galaxy when it comes to like humans or intelligent creatures. They're like, no, man, I think that there's definitely aliens. Well, Vice President J.D. Vance, he ain't really down with that. He says that aliens are demons, and he said that there's an obsession with UFOs. So Vice President J.D. Vance, during a conversation that he's had, said that, he considers aliens mostly to be demons on the Benny Show podcast with Benny Johnson, and said Benny, who bills the show for cutting behind-the-scenes insight into global conflict and freedom, wondered if Vance, who has been noticeably quiet about Donald Trump's war in the Middle East, which, I'm not going to read this comment. This is The Guardian, which they're trash. They always add those little things. So that's a prime example of how the legacy media will try and inject an opinion as a fact statement. Who has been noticeably quiet? Well, that's an opinion statement, not a fact, and says had yet looked at any of the files. So Benny Johnson's asking if Vice President J.D. Vance had looked at any of the files about unidentified flying objects, which they call unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs. I'm anti-UAP. I'm pro-UFO. Drew, are you UAP or UFO?
I didn't know there was a line between those two.
Yeah, man. I don't like calling them
It's
UAPs.
the new
man.
Pepsi versus Coke. You have to have a
You
take.
have to pick a side, man. But J.D. Vance actually responded. I actually haven't had a chance to look at the files, mustering significantly more enthusiasm than any other previous question. I've not been able to spend enough time on this, but I'm going to. Trust me, I'm obsessed with this. And then story goes on to say, I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons. Anyway, but that's a longer discussion. So here's what I want to throw out as we're talking about space expansion, building a moon base. Where do you guys fall on UFO? That's what I'm really. That's the burning question. Where are you?
I watched the
UFO
JD
and
Vance.
aliens?
Yeah, the JD Vance one. God, I'm so used to calling JD Advance right now. Have you guys
JD
been following
Advance.
all the different memes and videos and AI stuff? It's wild. Yeah, no, I took that as the Guardian doctored that up a little bit. That was completely different the way I took it when I heard him actually say these words. He's like, no, I'm not really big into the whole aliens thing of a completely different, species and all this stuff like that. The way I took it is like him with his faith, be like, yeah, there are some weird things going on that has happened, on Earth and, and different stuff. And he's like, and I can relate it to the way he looks at his own religion and demonic type things. I don't know. Seemed like a fair shot as opinion is what I thought. And it was off the cuff of a podcast type thing. So I don't know. It seems like the Guardian took that in a completely different direction. But no, to answer your question, I'm more UFO. That's what I grew up on. And yeah, I loved watching X-Files. Will always be I'd say my first like real series that I watched, like other than this, and actually it did come after The Simpsons. So I think my parents were into X-Files and we did Simpsons and then X-Files on Sunday nights. But yeah, going back to like Space Force, a lot of people give Trump and the military crap about Space Force. It's a real thing because throughout all of history, like whoever owns the sky wins the war, from shooting or fighting with knives and swords to bow and arrows. Like that was a huge thing. If you can get distance, like you can win. And then that went to artillery and catapults, and then eventually like tanks and a ton more stuff. Now we got drones and planes, and so now in the military, it's like different branches or different units own certain levels of height off the ground. And then we just got to a point where it's like, okay, now the planes are so sophisticated that we need to go even higher and higher and higher. And then, now we have satellites. So Space Force was the next dimension to kind of go up there. We're either going to go upward or we're going to go downward into the ocean. And it looks like for now, the sky is more the appealing.
So
type
you don't
thing.
believe that aliens are demons, or do you believe that aliens exist? Or where are you at on aliens?
I
being
don't-
demons?
I don't know enough about religion to make that kind of or science. I believe that there are things out there that we don't know, and we need to do a lot more things. I want to believe, if you will, that the X-Files.
But you, David, are aliens?
here's the thing.
One,
So
are
here's the
you a
thing.
UFO UAP
Right.
guy? And two, are aliens demons?
I'm a UFO guy. We're just gonna settle that right now. It's like Drew's talking about. We had like X-Files. We had all this stuff, right? The old Spielberg films, right? E.T. It's UFO. Like, we need to stop this thing where we let people redefine things for us. I'm not down with it. It's UFO. Also, I do think there's room for the existence of aliens. I mean, I think about it like this. Like, okay, so from a religious standpoint, right, you have this person who's creator of the universe. Do you really think he's going to create an endless, ever-expanding canvas and not put some stuff on it? And there's just one spot that's got a whole bunch going on? That's crazy work. And even in the Bible, there's some hints to the potential of aliens existing. I mean, some of it you got to take a real leap, and then there's some where it's like, that sounds like we're talking about potentially other civilizations either within the ancient world, or we're talking about other civilizations on other planets, where the interpretation is open-ended enough. There's that passage about like the sheep of a different flock, right? You could think that could be the Jews and the Gentiles, the Israelites and the Romans, or it could be humans and whatever's out there. Also, AK, are you tracking the green balls of fire that happened like in the last few weeks and all the missing scientists and all that?
Yeah,
other stuff
no,
going on?
we're gonna
Yeah,
bring
yeah,
all
okay.
that in. We're gonna bring all that
Okay.
in.
I have a hot take.
I
think aliens are real, and I think Space Force needs to gear up. We need to go out there ready to go, especially with the government buying
it is the
aliens.gov.
next direction
yeah.
For the longest time in history, we didn't have the whole planet covered, and there's always going to be people that want to go, whatever Roman times, Caesar, and God, I'm blanking on history people right now. Genghis Khan, there's always going to be people that want to strive for more. And then, you get the across the Pacific with, rich people that want to commission people like Columbus and Corsair and Cortez and all these people like that. Funny thing, I was in Florida last week and I went to St. Augustine, the city. It was a really amazing city.
Nice
Never
city.
been there before. And then they had all these like fountain of youth, type stuff. And it was really cool. So it's like we have that history of people that want to do this stuff. And then you get to America, and for the longest time, we just lived on the coast basically, and nobody wanted to cross the Mississippi. They thought it was like it couldn't be done. And then you're crossing the Rockies, and then you're getting the whole country. So we're always gonna want to expand. If it's not across the earth, which we pretty much have the whole earth, mapped out. And so now we have nowhere to go but up.
Yeah. So to finish on this point and then to bring in another aspect that I think ties in real well. I personally think that the Bible is meant to help humans in our actual understanding of God and Christ and being able to like actually give us salvation. Like that's the purpose of the Bible, which means that there's a bunch of stories that aren't told in the Bible that aren't really germane to that. So I think the idea that as a Christian, because I am a Christian, that you can't believe that God created other beings. Why? Yeah, for sure. But how is that germane up until we have the technology to actually leave the earth? It would make it so much more confusing. And I don't think that God messes up. I think that God knows everything. And I think but we'll come to find out that, guess what? Some of the aliens are demons, but there's probably other races of different species of humans that God created that are in different places doing different things. But yeah, it doesn't preclude that some aliens are transdimensional demons, because they definitely are. But to kind of go further into, again, looking at the bigger picture of expanding NASA and these conversations about what is the United States doing? What way is the world going and why? There have been drones that have been breaching restricted airspace at Barksdale Base. And this is kind of a creepy story, man, just from a couple of days ago. It says that Barksdale Air Force Base has confirmed that multiple unauthorized drones entered its restricted airspace in the Bossier Parish earlier this month down in Louisiana. In an email on Friday, Barksdale spokesperson said that the drones flew into the base's airspace the week of March 9th. No further details were provided, such as the number and type of drones involved. And then it explains that it's actually home to the Air Force Global Strike Command and the 2nd Bomb Wing, which includes the nuclear-armed B-52 bomber squadrons. So this, I think, is, again, another interesting wrinkle. Now, is this important to having superiority of space in the air? Yeah, it is. Does this mean that there's aliens? Not necessarily. This could be China's drones, or it could be some other unknown shadow organization that we don't really know about. The other thing that I wanted to kind of bring up as well, that again dovetails into Cobra Commander. The other thing that dovetails into the story as well, and then I want to open it up over to you, David, because you have a real hot take, is that we're building a base on the moon. We have these incursions that are happening in our airspace. We have, J.D. Vance talking about demons, aliens being demons. And then, of course, why not, just to make it more fun, alien.gov is registered, and the White House teases stay tuned. The domain comes less than a month after President Donald J. Trump said he would order federal agencies to release government files related to extraterrestrial life. And some people are joking around saying that, Jay-Z's ads, but that it's be like a list of all the illegal aliens that we captured? I don't think so. I think that this is part of their larger disclosure network. But to kind of end my point and then kick it over to you, David and Drew, I think that all of this ties together in and actually there's one last little tiny piece just to throw over, that something bigger is at play, or maybe a lot of just weird things are happening all at once. But the very last little piece, just again to kind of kick it over to you, is that yeah, man, a bunch of UFO scientists went missing, and Representative Tim Burchett
Or turned up dead. Yeah.
specifically said, following the deaths and unexplained disappearances of several scientists linked to UFO research, Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett sounded the alarm in what he calls it a troubling and dark pattern. He pointed specifically to the cases of retired U.S. Air Force Major General William Neal McCaslin and his former colleague Monica Reza, both of whom vanished under unclear circumstances. McCaslin has not been seen since Friday, February 27th, when he reportedly left his home for a trail run despite ongoing investigations involving the FBI, Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico Research and Rescue, and the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. So again, wrap this all together and kick it over to you boys. Is something going on, or are we just reading too much into all of these different fascinating things?
Yeah, something that's too many things. That's too many things happening at the same time. I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but by the end of this, I might go to the grocery store and get some wrap, because that's a lot. I have a theory.
Let's hear it, brother.
That there are aliens. They're probably technologically superior to us. If they could come from wherever they are out in the stars to where we are now, right, then they have better technology than us. And if you're observing a civilization that's way behind you in technology, right, you're going to observe them as the way like explorers observe different primitive tribes they encountered, right, from a distance. Right, you're not necessarily going to go down and shake hands and greet people and see what's up. You're going to observe for a while and see how they behave. And this I'm gonna go way off in left field, and the chat is gonna go nuts. But we got this war going with Iran, with Israel, and you talked about it previously. The U.S. just kicked out all these laser and energy based weapons that we've been using. We've been playing Space Invaders with missiles, shooting them down. Those lasers got to go somewhere. Lasers, keep going. I think that the use of that sort of weaponry, potentially, if, let's say, there's a technologically more advanced civilization out there observing us, they're going to be like, oh, crap, if they get interstellar travel capabilities, they now have laser and energy weapons. They could be a threat to our empire. I had a great debate with somebody actually recently about this, where it's like, in Star Trek, right, the humans encounter the Vulcans at first contact, right? They're a science spacefaring civilization. But imagine if they'd encountered the Romulans first, right? War, conquest, enslavement of other civilizations, right? If that's what's out there, they're not going to want us to have space, interstellar travel capabilities and energy weapons. That's just my hot take. That's my out there in the weeds theory. You can tell me if I'm nuts. The chat can tell me if I'm nuts.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, a lot of these things are going on at the same time. It's all a distraction for something else. You never know what's actually happened, but the only thing we do know is our technology is going up. Like, just think about where we went from, what was it, like 1900s, 1910s, and then you get, the Wright brothers. And then a couple, not too many years after that, we're in World War, was it one, that we had planes? Yeah, they had the very basic planes that,
Red Baron.
You could see them. Yeah, the Red Baron type stuff, and you could like shoot them down basically. And then World War II is when you get that more high tech stuff, and now we have. I heard something recently that our commercial planes are going slower now than they did in the 50s. I heard might be like the fuel, the engine kind of usage. I don't know, whatever the case is, but it's like we're not advancing. We do these things where we get like a big advancement right away, industrial revolution, air travel, whatever the case is. And then we like slow it down, and then a new one comes up. So now we're at then we had internet, then we had AI. So I have a feeling like all this technology is coming on. Oh, just a shout out somebody in the chat, Matt 97 Miller, aliens and AI, how we will end up with real Transformers. And that's like not totally insane. You know, because think about it, you know, internet is just internet. You add air travel to that, you add a algorithm to it, and you send that to Mars or something, and that would look like an alien to them, or you know, if people were on there. So we're going very quickly. It seems like our minds just can't. When I go back to that average person being stupid, our minds can't handle it. And I always just wanted that, because you know the whole phrase is like, don't be the smartest person in the room, because then you got nothing to learn, and you got everything to lose pretty much. And it's just like, that's kind of like the feeling that I've had. I try to just get in all these different rooms where I'm just learning something. And if I get in one where I'm not, then I'm like, okay, I really need to get out here and go up my skills and in some kind of way. So I'm always trying to understand the stuff more and more, and just come at like, what can I learn from this? And there's a lot out there. My question back to you, AK, is like, did we land on the moon? Did we come back from the moon? Shane Cashman talks about it.
Yes.
Is it just an astronaut graveyard? You know, did
listen,
we actually
man,
come back from the moon?
I believe we went to the moon, one, and I know that is becoming, I guess, a controversial opinion to have. Shout out to my coworker Gabe. He's 26, 27, and he is like, so you really believe we went to the moon? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I actually find that crazy, because I think you're a really smart guy. How can you think we? And I'm like, what? And so like we started to like parse.
Well, because they haven't seen it. They didn't live through, you know, all the NASA takeoffs. You know.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
now
I mean,
with the advent of AI, there's all these fake generated images where they try to make it look like a movie set. Like it wasn't something that actually happened.
That's the thing, right? Like there's this interesting intersection that occurs. Like we're old enough that we remember, even when I was a little kid, the Challenger shuttle blowing up, and like the teacher, like all the like I think there was one that was from the Midwest or whatever, from Minnesota maybe, but like those things were happening, and then we kind of like we're like, what's the point in doing this? And I think that there are reasons that you can find. Now, shout out, I'm doing a lot of shout outs today to my homie Shane Cashman. He also believes that the moon is mostly fake, because he can actually point to, hey, Stanley Kubrick was most likely commissioned to make the moon landing because we just didn't have the technology. So maybe it's truth mixed with fiction, that we went to the moon, but we knew that like it would look stupid, and we really were building this thing up to make it look like, oh, we got to the moon, we dominated it, so we could win the space race. But the reason that I have this image pulled up is that, again,
real quick,
President Trump wants to go back to the moon, and Artemis 2 is this rendering, and this is directly from the White House, for all humanity. We're going back to the moon. Let's go, baby.
I like it.
We gotta have something to strive for. Like as Americans, as humans, we need to have something to strive for.
I don't remember the Challenger. I just wanted to quickly insert that. I don't know how old you were when it happened to AK, but I was still in processing. I was still shipping. I was 2 years out from arrival. Just throwing that out there for you.
When the Challenger blew up?
Yeah, it was 86, man. I wasn't born for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Was there another one that blew up after that? I thought there was another one that blew up.
Well,
I just remember
was, like, we talked
about
it. I remember talking about
Maybe
it
that's
in
what it was.
Class, you know, with parents.
Oh,
whatever.
yeah. Well, it was a current event,
like
so yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then you talked about
it.
But
I was
on
born in '84,
next...
so.
Yep.
It was brought up in all of in my classroom stuff when I was in school.
Well,
but yeah,
the point, what both of you are talking about,
I don't remember
is like
seeing
we have this series of events. The was it 1960 was JFK saying we're going to go to the moon, and that was a decade of people saying, yeah, scientists, kids, whatever, we're going to do this thing. And then it was what was it, 1969 with Nixon, where it actually supposedly allegedly happened, and then we have this like series of like we keep going back up there, and you know and now, like you said, AK, like kids nowadays,
maybe that was the Watergate files.
They
Proof
don't
of the
have any of
footage
that
being
knowledge.
filmed.
you know, all the knowledge they have is all sci-fi movies and now, you know, conspiracy theories that people are talking about different stuff on TV. They
And
just
AI
they can't
generated
grasp
images.
it.
Yeah.
Just like me, like I can't grasp an airplane, how an airplane works. Like really, you know what I mean? Like we came up with this thing in the last 100 years. And yeah, it blows my mind. I just accept it, just like Bluetooth technology. It's like, how does this work? You know. Anyway,
How's
we
this
got to move.
wizard talking to me.
Like, how would you
Way
explain?
without-
How would you explain it to somebody, you know, 20 years ago about Bluetooth, or somebody 300 years ago about? I mean,
I
playing,
tell him
you know.
I'm a wizard.
Yep.
Well, and that's
There we
my
go.
issue
You're
with,
good.
with Vance's take on this, because it's like, you know, if you took our technology back to like the Salem era and we're all Christian men, we're getting burned.
Oh,
You're
for
telling me
sure.
you can hear
You
somebody
got to be
talking
careful.
in Minnesota over here, like, and so I'm like, Vance, like, he literally admitted, just like somebody else, I didn't read it, right? But then he's got an opinion on it, and I'm like, you can do that, but it's not really a qualified opinion. Like, read the files. I know
That's
got
why you
other
got to
stuff
be
going on,
careful.
but
You got to
read the
keep your
files.
mouth shut and be
Pacific,
careful of
before you
what
talk
you
about Lord of the
know.
Rings, read even just the appendices. My God, you know, like, we're hurting ourselves on the right. We really are
No,
when it
it's
comes
all
to
good.
stuff like this. A little
Deep
bit.
reflection, look into
Yes.
things, keep your mouth shut, your ears open, and you'll do all right. All right, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap this up here. AK, any final thoughts on aliens? Because this is your baby, and I don't want to.
No final thoughts. But if you guys want to find more of my musings, make sure to follow me on X, Instagram, and Facebook at Real AK Kamara. You can also follow me over on TikTok at AK Kamara. I am often making some content. Some of it's super jokey about that. You can also listen to, I do a radio appearance every Friday on the John Justice Show. So if you don't live in the Minneapolis-St. Paul listening area and you can't listen to 103.5 FM or AM 1130, you can always go to the iHeartRadio app, search the John Justice Show, and it's live every Monday through Friday, but I'm on it on Fridays, 7:30 to 9 a.m. And Drew, what you got going on, brother? Where can people find you? How can people follow your musings and the things that you got going on in life?
X, Drew Outstanding on X is where I talk more about the fun stuff, the spicy things. But more importantly, at least more urgently, I'll be in Colorado next week, like I said, with all these veterans and doing some wild things. I can't wait. This first day in Colorado last year. So
Incredible.
hit a snowstorm, and you can't just say no to this because of the weather. You got to get out there, no matter what it's like, and just see what happens. So and I changed it. I updated it. I told you guys last week. So it's Operation Drew Outstanding on YouTube, where I do a lot of adaptive sports. So here's my art that I did last week too. Found it. Shooting some dinosaurs.
Look how awesome that is.
Dope.
Yeah, so get out
like
there, try fun things, meet some cool people, and just kind of push your limits.
Incredible. Drew, you need to get some alien targets out there based on everything that AK has introduced to us here.
You better get good at
But
shooting aliens.
you get some of them
do it.
Musk laser weapons. All right. I am David Webster, the Peruvian gentleman, on all of my social medias, where I am rage baiting leftists and participating in pop culture. If you know me at all, you know that I'm constantly throwing up Tolkien memes, Lord of the Rings memes, comparing things to real life. It's a good time. I'm also in the middle of going through a big deep dive back into some historical books. I just finished Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I'm currently working on it's a fictional / nonfiction series of books from ancient China, actually called The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, about the fall of the Han Dynasty and the rise of the Three Kingdoms era. It's an incredible series of books. I mean, it's so popular that they've made anime, TV shows, movies, video games out of it. It's an incredible era of human history, but before China went communist and they were a meritocracy. But that's where you can find me, and you'll probably see me at one of the local cons here in Minnesota as well. And but this is Culture Warriors Unchained. with my two co-hosts, Drew and AK. We've had a great night with all of you guys. Let's keep the chat and the conversation going there. We'll respond to you when we can. But everybody have a great night.
Warriors unchained.